Greetings, everybody. Welcome. My name is David Powell, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about how to give an effective oral presentation. Now, we have a lot of different types of presentations that we can do, and that's one of the first things that we're going to be talking about is the categories of presentations. Then we're going to roll into the planning of them, some of the formats of them, the delivery, the presentation tips, some ins and outs, some ideas and things that you might be able to use to make yourself a little more effective. And then we're going to be talking about the dreaded group presentation. Well, it may not be so dreaded, but we'll be talking about some techniques and things that you might be able to do to help your team be more effective. So, should we get down to it? As you can see, we've got the first part here that we're going to be talking about the categories, some planning tips, and the format. Okay, so let's get started with that. And when you are going to do a presentation, the approach that you take and how you do it, which category it is, really depends on your audience, right? What your goal is, what you want to have to be the effect of your presentation. There's other factors, as you can see, the time and length, your audience, the room characteristics, things like that we're going to be talking about more in detail later on, okay? But first, let's talk about the categories, okay? There are 4 different main categories that we're going to be talking about. As you can see, it's memorized, read, extemporaneous, that's kind of a hard word, say that again, extemporaneous, okay? And then impromptu. Memorized, if we take that first one, memorized presentations are ones that are very difficult for a lot of people. If you're having a hard time memorizing things, this is going to be hard for you, of course. But memorized, of course, you're going to have all that information into you. This actually gives a more professional feel a lot of times when you have things memorized. The trick is not to be sounding like a robot, like you have memorized this and you are reading it in your mind and trying to bring it out as you speak. Okay, we're not going to be doing that. We want it to feel more natural. Now, that's one of the main purposes of doing a memorized speech, is having a more natural feel to it. Okay. The second one is to read. Okay, of course, when you have something that is prepared and read, usually these are used more in a formal situation. Now, a good example of this is you'll see a lot of times, like maybe the president, or in a legal situation when you need to give a formal statement about something. Many times it'll be written, and so that there is no chance for making a mistake. Things that are done in, you could probably read it in very high emotional situations too. Let's say maybe even, heaven forbid, at a funeral or something like that, where just saying those words and thinking about things can bring on a lot of emotions and stuff. Sometimes having to read something like that may be your only alternative. Now, with that last example, I don't really recommend. I hope that it's more memorized and comes from the heart in those type of situations, especially at a funeral. But I wanted to give that as kind of an alternative, because many of us, in such a heightened emotional state, like a funeral, there's a lot of emotions, and sometimes you start giving statements and feeling things from your heart, and sometimes it's overwhelming, and it's just enough to get through it. If you're one of these type of people, then maybe to read it, or maybe even an extemporaneous type of speeches is adequate. Okay, but to read it allows for it to be exact. Okay, so you'll see a lot of officials, politicians, let's say public spokesmen and stuff that are representing something in a formal way will have a read prepared statement. Okay. Extemporaneous, of course, is just an outline. As you see here, an outline is created with bullet points. Now, a lot of people may use this with a PowerPoint presentation. Okay, we're going to be getting into PowerPoint presentations because this is kind of the pit of where a lot of oral presentations go wrong. Okay, people they use PowerPoint. Sometimes they don't use it very well, or the most effective is what it could be. Extemporaneous, just remember it's bullet points and outlined. Okay, and then of course the impromptu speech. Hey, why don't you give us a few words on whatever you're talking about? The impromptu speech is one of the things that most people really dread, being put on the spot or something like that. As you can see, the presenter has almost no time to prepare the presentation. They're just asked to give a few words or to present on something. Hopefully it's something that you already know, so there isn't too much preparation that is needed. Okay, but it is something that you'll always want to have in the back of your mind, especially if you have some kind of expertise in a background. Many times when you're visiting or you're attending some kind of a meeting or a workshop, even seminar, sometimes you'll be asked to spontaneously give a few words, which this is the category. So be prepared. Always be ready, no matter what situation, especially as a student or at a job. Sometimes your boss may come ask you to give a few words, or to be able to give a report of some kind. As a student, many times you'll be asked to give presentations, and of course this is to prepare you for the real world, because it does happen, right? So make sure that you always have in the back of your mind something that you're ready to give, and just giving speeches in public settings is good practice. Okay, so let's get down to the second topic here and talk about planning. Okay, there is, now I'm going to read this from the document here. The GAS planning method, or GAS planning method. It's an effective tool, okay, that's for both written and oral communications. Essentially, you must identify your goals, analyze the audience, and develop a strategy. So that's the GAS. The goals, the audience, and the strategy. Okay? And, of course, we're going to be talking about each one of these. In your planning process, you're going to sit down and you're going to think about the goals. What is it that you are trying to accomplish? Are you trying to get somebody to do something, buy something? Are you trying to instruct them, giving them some kind of information that they need? Okay, so we have informative, or you're trying to persuade them, so a persuasive type of speech. What goal do you have? Okay, and there's different other categories too, but the goal is something that you'll want to list down. What is it at the end of your presentation do you want them to do? Okay, analyze the audience. Now, if I'm giving presentations to a bunch of children, maybe the words that I use, the vocabulary that I use, is not going to be very big. Maybe I'm going to have to make it very simple. And I may have to add more activities or something for them to see or do. Okay? So audience is very important. Know whether it is your boss that you're going to be giving your presentation to, or a panel of people. If you've got a lot of people there, gosh, That could be pretty strenuous, right? Stress. So, know your audience. Know what they are kind of expecting. Okay? And in your presentation, we're going to be talking about that as well. Part of that is you're going to give them some expectations as well. So that's part of the beginning of your speech. You're going to be letting them know kind of what to expect and how to expect it. Okay? Now, let's get on to the format. Okay? Let's talk about the opening part of your talk, of your speech. Opening is crucial. How you open really is what's going to make or break your speech. Okay? So take the opening very seriously and think about how you're going to open this. Now I've got an example here that I want to show you. Okay? Sometimes you'll want to open with a rhetorical question. Now this is Amy Purdy. Okay? As you can see, she's actually an Olympic snowboarder. Okay, so if you like snowboarding and stuff, she's awesome. And by the way, she actually had an accident and lost both of her legs, in an accident. So she's handicapped, and she won the Olympics. She has, I believe she took gold. So listen to how she opens her TED Talk. I'm on TED.com. And she gave a talk a while ago. Now this is kind of interesting. Now watch.
If you write for a book, and you were the author, how would you want your story to go?
Did you catch that? How she opened that up? She asked by stating a question first. Now, if we go back here to the opening, when you're starting, as a general rule, you can capture their attention with a rhetorical question or some kind of an activity of response. I'm going to show you another example here in a second. A rhetorical question. This is a word that means that you're giving a question, but you're not necessarily waiting for an answer. Okay? Rhetorical. So that's what Amy was doing here in this presentation, is that she was actually opening with a question. Okay? Now here's another alternative. This is Kelly McGonigal. Okay? She's given many different speeches, and she does a pretty awesome way. Now listen to how she opens. Okay?
I have a confession to make.
She starts out with wanting to confess about something. Does that pique your interest? Gosh, I'm going to confess. What is she going to confess? We don't know. But that is how you capture their attention. Okay? Very good examples here of opening a presentation. Okay? Now, let's talk about some of these others. As you can see, I've written some examples as well here that you can see. I'll let you read those yourself. And let's continue on down and talk a little bit about the rationale for giving the presentation. Okay? We've captured them with an opening statement. Now we've got to give them the reasons why you're doing this. Okay? You got to let them know. The thing about giving a presentation of any kind is making sure that everybody is with you, that they understand what is going on. This is not like a novel of some kind where you lead up to the climax and then all of a sudden at the end of the book everything comes together. You've got to have the bits and pieces in an oral presentation, and this also can go for writing as well, that you've got to let them know what they're getting into, let them understand and have some expectations of what you're doing. Okay? You've got to set up those expectations. So tell them what you hope to accomplish. So like this in the example, the purpose of my presentation is to show you how we can increase our market share by up to 15% in the next year. Okay? That lets them know what they're in for. So in your presentation, give them a list of things that you're going to go through. Okay? And in an oral presentation, you're going to tell them what you're going to be talking about, and then while you're telling them, you're going to remind them what you've told them or what you're telling them, and then at the end you're going to go over what you've told them, okay, so that they make sure. Now we're going to talk about the end. The opening and the closing are your main key areas of an oral presentation, okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, now also, as it says here, tell them what you hope to accomplish and then give them your recommendation. Usually, depending on what kind of a speech, if you're trying to persuade them or give them information, you're going to be giving them some recommendations. And you've probably already heard me say a couple of recommendations, right, on giving oral presentations. And we're just beginning. So, make sure that you have your facts together and that you have some ideas to present to them. Don't ever present a problem without offering some kind of a solution, right? So, tell the major elements or sequences of your presentation, right? And then get on down to letting them know what the details are. And that's what the body is. Your body is going to be basically the culmination of all of your detailed information, the things that you want them to make sure they remember, okay? In your opening, you want to give them the big stuff, making sure that you're capturing their attention and that then you're going to be using that information and giving them details to help kind of fill in, okay? All right. We've given you some examples. There's 3 examples of body content, okay? And you can go ahead and read that, but it's basically making sure that it's additional information that they're going to need, okay, on how to do something. Or if you're given an informative presentation, it's going to be how all of this works and some of the information that you're telling them on what it is and what it does. If it's persuasive, you're going to give them the reasons why they need to do what you're asking them to do. Okay? So, some bullet points that I want you to remember, okay? This is stuff that I do want you to kind of remember, is that the information is interesting. The information is attached to a vivid mental image. You're having them use their senses. Okay? Sight. Even touch sometimes can be done. Hearing, listening, feeling. Okay? You want them to be able to use all 5 senses. Okay? The information is important. Make sure that you're not wasting their time. And you're not wasting their time, and I'll give you some tips later on about your mannerisms, how you move, okay, how you use your hands, what kind of pictures you use, or video, or some kind of a object that you can use, okay, which is important. And then some kind of an application. Tell them how they're going to be able to use it or why they should use it, okay, depending on what kind of presentation you're doing. And then, of course, you want to make sure that you know your knowledge or know your audience to see if they have the knowledge of what you're talking about. If not, you're going to have to back up a little bit and let them know what it is step by step. Or basically, you're going to have to simplify things. okay, if they don't. So know your audience and know if they have prior knowledge. If they have prior knowledge, sometimes you can draw upon that. Now remember, Amy, and both of the examples that I give before here, when in their opening, when they asked that rhetorical question, and when Kelly said, I have a confession, both of those situations are things that you're drawing upon their memories or their experiences, and you're getting them involved. So that's a very important thing to make sure that you're using in your speech. Okay, so in the body, make sure that you've got enough details and enough information that gives them what they need. Okay, and then of course the closing. Now, the closing part of the presentation is just as important as the ending. Most people are going to remember the beginning or the end of your presentation, okay? Many times the body of it will give them some tidbits, some facts and things like that, and keep them going, and is the meat of things, but it's the ending and the beginning that really is going to draw them and leave an impression. Okay, so the closing part of the presentation is very important. You'll see in the bullet here, it says, in summary, the budget transfer is feasible. Remember, you're using the example of increasing their productivity by 15%, right? And so they're talking about the budget transfer and budgeting of making this possible. So the earlier product introduction is compatible with our current inventories, and the earlier entry into our marketplace is important for our profitability and market share. This proposal will enable us to swim farther upstream instead of just staying where we are. I recommend that you approve this recommendation and make it effective the 1st of next month. Now, I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. So, what this did is, in the conclusionary part of this, is they summarized everything that they had just talked about. They put it into different words. They didn't use the same words. They used some of the same words, but it wasn't exactly the same. They used their own words to restate what they have just talked about. Okay? So, when you are doing your presentation and closing them, just as you did in the opening, you had that hook. Okay? Asking them the rhetorical question, or doing that, I have a confession, right? So when you're closing, you want to have something that grabs them. Okay? You don't want to do something that you're just saying, well, all right, this is what we talked about. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Okay? They're not going to remember those things. So sometimes you need to restate your main ideas. Okay? Remember that in your presentation, there's going to be a few things that you want them to remember. And this is the time, the conclusion is the time to go over those things and have those things brought back fresh in their memory. Okay? Also, it's a good time to restate the purpose, okay, in a way that you're concluding. Just like in this example here that I read, he's restating the purpose, right? This proposal will enable us to swim farther upstream than just staying where we are. So his purpose of this is to help the company, and he's restating it. Okay? He's also told them how he's going to be able to do this, and then makes a recommendation of what he wants them to do. Okay? And leaves them with that. Okay? There's some other examples here that you will see that we use, where you can give them some oral and nonverbal signals. Okay? Things like holding up your hands. First, I want you to re-go over these things. Second is this, and third is this. Okay. I can't reiterate this enough. If you have notes or something, this is something you want to make sure that you remember. Okay. I'm going to mention it, or try to mention it throughout this whole presentation, but you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them. Tell them what you are telling them, and then tell them what you told them. Okay? They're going to remember that a lot easier. And the more senses you're able to involve, the better your presentation is going to be. Okay? All right. Let's go down to this next page and talk about this message. Okay? Consider the difference with many phone messages. Hi, Stan. This is Sharon. Hey, I thought maybe I'd catch you in, but I guess I missed you this time. I wanted to talk with you and let you know that, well, something's apparently gone wrong with the Brady account. And it seems like they're canceling part of their order. Not sure just why, but I guess we'll find out sooner or later. Hope it's not major. Anyway, Dave has been assigned to do some snooping around to see if he can find anything out. So if you'd like to try and reach him, that might be a good idea. Thanks. I'll see ya. Bye. What do you think of the message? Was it effective, do you think? I'm not too sure. Okay. This message can be worded like it says here, wordy, disconjointed, difficult to follow. Why do you think that is? Maybe it could be because I used a lot of ums in there, right? When you're doing a presentation, there's some things that you need to remember that you want to consider making sure that you're not doing too much of. Here is an example. Watch this. Here's a girl that's giving a presentation in class, okay? Tell me if this is effective.
The different areas in the marketing industry. So the first area that I want to talk about is the direct marketer, which is like a position usually in a company such as Sony or Nike. For example, they'll have like a product manager who wants to create a concept.
Okay, now she's talking. Did you notice anything? She says a lot, right? So there are things that we speak sometimes that we do too much of. Did you catch anything else that she's doing that is distracting? With her hair, right? She's playing with her hair, and she's more interested in her hair and her paper than she is with the audience, with the people she's speaking to. So there again is something you'll want to make sure that you're doing, is giving them your attention. And when you're speaking, cut down and try to eliminate the ums or other speech cues that we have. Okay? Now, let's get